So here's our hole that we've dug, a very archaic, simple technology that is very useful. This serves as a chalice or a crucible, so to speak, of transformation. So just digging a hole, a very simple process, simple thing to do, but very transformative to food scraps from the kitchen into compost, organic matter for our gardens. We can also make biochar in a pit like this and transform woody lignous carbon matter into a char that will hold and house microbiology and nutrients and minerals and last in our soils, help with the EC, the electric conductivity, and the holding capacity of our soils. So this is a very simple thing to do, and it's something that I like to do really right when I get to a farm, is establish my zone 1 close to home, but still with a nice defensive space between, because we do get bears here. I've seen them on these rocks hanging out, beautiful mama and her cub, and they might come check this out. So I'm giving myself some defensible space in case they want to come around and sniff around, dig through this. Usually they're just looking for very smelly things like meat. We'll bring them around. So I'm not too worried about it, but still aware of that situation. But it's also, a stone's throw from my house and between the hoop houses down here that we're establishing, the garden beds. So it's very easy. Once this is done composting, we can easily take it over to the garden beds and add this organic matter now to the soil there where we're growing. So now we're going to add our food scraps along with some carbon. I like to collect leaf mold and branches and what have you from around the area. So here's some beautiful oak leaves that I've gathered. Here's some kitchen scraps so far. I also have some brown paper bags. This is going to add to the carbon. So we're looking to maintain a ratio of around 30 to 1, 30 times more carbon than nitrogen. So I really look for a place where we wouldn't have pooling, try to keep this at a high point. And so far after the rains, we're not seeing a lot of pooling. We haven't tapped the water table up here, so that's good. In the case that you do get pooling and a lot of water collecting in here, well, then essentially you're creating a liquid Jadam fertilizer, right? So a JLF, Jadam liquid fertilizer. So not a big deal, but in this method, I'm trying to incorporate aerobic and anaerobic composting methods. This isn't solely anaerobic or aerobic. I mean, really what we're gonna do is bury this pile. So you could consider it anaerobic, but we're still adding in a lot of material that's going to help to create air pockets and use some aerobic method as well within this. I also like to add in all kinds of various fungi that I found from around the property, especially these lignous hungry saprophytic shelf fungi like golden curtain, false turkey tail, and true turkey tail. Here,
I am out on the hunt for a carbon source. In this case, we're looking for the leaf mold on the topsoil, the mulch layer that's naturally formed under these oak trees. Collecting handfuls of the leaf mold and topsoil, very random samples. I don't want to strip away a whole area and leave it bare so that we don't disturb this area. We just want to take, random samples and leave the majority left alone, as to not disturb and really rip away the topsoil so that this area can regenerate and maintain its healthy balance. Really, this is a form of wild crafting, like harvesting herbs or mushrooms or anything else. We don't want to overtake our share and really devastate any area.
Oh, some red wigglers. Hello friends, hello friends. You can see this fungi is just devouring these leaves here. And you have some really beautiful mycelium running through the topsoil. So that's a really beautiful sign. This is what we want to introduce into our living soil systems to help with the nutrient cycling process. And literally there's an aggregate of leaf mold that's all connected into this aggregate, this cluster, and it's being devoured by this fungi here that's transforming it into an available form for our plants. So this is really great stuff to add into the compost as well. Nature has some incredible mechanisms for creating soil naturally. Really, it has a lot to do with the leaves falling, these oak trees dropping all their leaves in the wintertime down to the ground where it is
digested and composted down into topsoil.
I always like looking for wood that is fully inoculated, being eaten down. We have some true turkey tails down here. They're really great at breaking down wood. Golden curtains here, false turkey tails. These are great lignous hungry fungi, saprophytic fungi that are eating the wood, breaking it down and decomposing it into really available nutrients and helping with sequestering the carbon in the soil. So a lot more golden curtains. And so I love to collect some of these to toss in with my compost piles, just to ensure that we're adding in a lot of diversity of living fungi that's going to help build soil. And really the goal in
ecological succession is to
create more fungal dominant soils, really, just like a healthy forest would have. So here we are at the earth chalice hole in the ground, and I've been adding carbon, leaves, cardboard, stuff like that, straw, nitrogen, which we would do food scraps, we can do manure, really whatever we have. And today I have some of these bags of the potatoes that we used in our JMS, Jadon Microbial Solution. And I really love adding these finished solids to my passive compost system. So I'm just gonna sprinkle in my potatoes, and we always use everything in natural farming, so nothing goes to waste. This is spent potatoes that were mashed up, and some leaf mold as well in here. So that's a really great addition to compost. The other thing I have here today is a bunch of food waste. So I wanted to talk about this because it's a major issue. We can turn that into a solution. So part of the problem that we have with our food system is that 40% of the food being produced is actually waste. In 2021, 40% of the food that was produced was wasted. So it's not just a matter of growing more food to feed people. So what we have here this is a bag of food from a grocery store, and I'm affiliated with a nonprofit that picks up food for the homeless, those in need, and hands out food. But sometimes that food is no good for anybody to eat, and it's perfect for this situation right here for composting. So Grocery stores cannot sell food that is expired, gone bad, been opened. There's a whole lot of waste that is generated from grocery stores and the system we have at hand. So you can develop relationships with those local stores in your area and get tons of food scraps right here. This is one example. This was just a little bit that was left over, and I get this very often. So some lettuce, some tomatoes, some other veggies. So this bag here is actually spent organic coffee grounds from a local roaster and coffee company that produces roasts organic coffee. So another resource, we can check in with those shops around us. Now, something to keep in mind with coffee grounds is that they're highly acidic. They will add a lot of acid, so that can help in some situations where you have, like, for instance, citrus, Camellia sinensis tea, certain bamboo, things like that, that like really acidic soils. We can, bring our soils down to a more acidic level. But when we're processing this, just keep in mind how much you're using, and you're gonna have to balance that out. So this process here will help to leach out a lot of those acids. They will get processed in this mix in the composting process, but you don't want to overdo it with the coffee grounds. I have had the opportunity of being on a coffee farm in Kona, and there were piles of spent coffee grounds and just wasted coffee byproducts that completely acidified the area and really caused a lot of devastation. So there's a way of processing these grounds so that they don't add a lot of acidity to the soil. We're going to balance that out and make sure we add something alkaline to balance this out. Going to spread this out evenly. I'm not going to use a lot of energy to turn this pile. It's a lot more nitrogen we just added, so I'm going to bring a couple loads of leaf mold as well and cover this with leaf mold. And we're filling up our hole pretty quick, so here soon I'm going to bury this with the soil that we dug out, and then we'll just let it sit for about a month and let the worms go to town. All those microorganisms start eating and decomposing and creating this beautiful humus here. So really awesome method for creating great compost and really putting your energy where it's needed elsewhere on the farm. We are a skeleton crew, and we're expected to have a lot of skill sets here on the farm. We don't hire out a lot of labor, so we have to do it ourselves. So we have to be careful where we put our labor. This is not about being lazy. This is about doing things more efficiently. So why do we want to turn compost and expend a lot of energy and time doing that when we can use a system like this, where we can pretty much set it and forget it, come back and have some beautiful compost and put our energy elsewhere. Up here collecting some more leaves for my compost. I'm gonna try to balance the carbon ratio here and get a bunch more leaves in the mix. My carbon. Some baby oak trees are forming their germinating seeds right now. So this leaf mold, there's a lot of life already in here, a lot of fungi and growth going on. Which is great. It's only going to add to the diversity and life in the compost and the soil that we're building.
So we got a nice bucket of our leaf mold to take back to the compost pile. And not only is this a carbon source here to add to the compost, but this is all inoculated with all kinds of good life to add into our compost pit. Beneficial bacteria and fungi.
So here we can see our earth chalice pit and some of the things I put in here. Cardboard. I just strained off some lactic acid bacteria, and so these are the curds that you're seeing. Full of lactic acid bacteria, full of life that's going to help digest and break things down. Underneath that, we have a lot of some hemp stalks from last year, also adding carbon back in. We have some trimmings, some herbal trimmings. We have some food that's gone bad from the food run that we've thrown in the pit here. So you can see I've also added a lot of milk cartons, when they're paper or cardboard cartons, we can compost those. We have bananas that have gone bad. So just layering in food scraps, any kind of organic waste. And I like to layer over carbon, like cardboard in this case. This is from packages I get. Oftentimes you'll see this paper. So that's great in here as well. It's a little more. So what I like to do is kind of layer across the top. I'll do cardboard across the top, then oftentimes I'll spray a layer of labs across that or soak it in and create just a nice lasagna layer to cover some of that nitrogen rich material. Right here I have a nice pile of leaves that I collected for our carbon to add. And as you can see, our pit is starting to get pretty full. So you can add in some leaves to the mix. And I don't really need to turn it. I'm just gonna spread it across and kind of naturally let this settle. I even walk on this sometimes to try to help things to settle in. So soon we'll be adding dirt on top of this because we're almost full here. So I'm gonna let this settle and I'll continue adding more nitrogen source. I have some coffee grounds here. I'm gonna add in and continue adding food scraps, anything else I get, nitrogen rich, and just continue layering nitrogen and carbon and fill this in real soon. So I'm going to give it another week or so of adding material, and this will kind of settle too a little bit as it's decomposing down and composting. The time has come to bury our static compost pile here, our earth chalice, as I call it. And I'm standing on all the soil that I dug out of this hole. So I'm just gonna basically scoop this over it. But this has been going here for about, let's see, about 3 months. And we probably could have filled it in earlier, honestly. But as you can see, it's kind of overheaping out of the hole here. So the point is, we're going to fill it in today. I'm sure it'll settle a little bit as it sits and further decomposes and turns into compost. We got a lot of earthworms in the ground. I did throw a couple handfuls of red wigglers in here to help break that all up. So that's always a good thing to do. And essentially what I'm going to do is just cover it up and let it sit for another month or so. And then we should have a great pile of compost. So this took me about 3 months to fill. Now you could fill it quicker than that. But the point is, you want to cover it up and give it about a month more to break down. And then when you dig it up, you'll have some great compost to use in the garden. It's pretty amazing, really, how much biomass and material you can fit into this hole. This is about a cubic yard, I would say. It's about 3 feet by 3 feet. So it's close to a cubic yard. And like I said, it's amazing how much material has gone into here. So we have some trimmings that I kind of topped off on the top, as well as a lot of cardboard I'm using for the carbon. I put a lot of just leaf mold that I've collected from the forest. I'll take and collect leaves and put that in my pile for the carbon. And that also helps inoculate a lot of the biology in the area, the fungi and bacteria, and other microorganisms that are helping to decompose and add to this biologically active compost that we're making. So I really love this style because it's minimal as far as the energy that we're putting in, as far as processing this and the time it takes. It's very low maintenance. So for me, I have a very busy schedule. We have a little half-acre food forest here, which is a side project on the side of a full-time job that I manage a farm here. And I don't have a lot of extra time to be turning compost piles. So this is a great way to just be very efficient with your time and your energy, and to make great compost just with extra random kitchen scraps, or like I said, tree trimmings or grass clippings, or whatever you have, any kind of biomass that you have available, you can compost, carbon and nitrogen. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to cover our pit. It's obviously overflowing and well overdue, but I'm not worried about that because it will settle as it decomposes a little more. So essentially what I'm going to do is cover this in and dig another hole right over here. So while we're waiting for this to finish, we'll have another hole that we can throw kitchen scraps into and be filling that while this is finishing. And by the time this is finished, theoretically, this pile will be filling up and we can cover that and keep this perpetual cycle going. So if you have 2 of these holes, one of them can be filling, one of them can be finishing, and you can kind of keep that cycle going. Okay, so we covered our pile here, and we're gonna give it about a month to finish decomposing. It's mainly the top layer that needs to break down since that was put in the latest. Everything else on the bottom, I'm pretty sure is finished compost already. So about 4 weeks, we're gonna unbury this, dig it up, and we should have some really nice compost here. So we'll do an update when that time has come. In the meantime, I'm gonna dig another hole over here, and we'll be filling our secondary earth chalice for a very simple way of composting. We'll see you in a month when this is ready. Peace.
Digging into the earth chalice pit, you can see this rich, dark compost that we've made from our no-turn compost pit. Black gold here.
Take a look at that. That's what our compost is looking like. A few months of letting it sit. You can see all these red wigglers have multiplied and done a great job at really breaking down all the food scraps. They're also adding a lot of their humic acids from the worm castings.
Ready to add to the garden.